Hey, this is Troy Taylor with the Championship Football Coaches Clinic on Totem Pole Sports. We have Coach Bobby Jones, the offensive coordinator from Washington Lee, and he's here today to talk about the shotgun triple option and the use of empty formations. Coach, how are you doing today?
Doing great. I'm excited to talk some ball. It's too long before spring ball, so I'm ready to talk some ball.
Yeah, Coach, I appreciate you always coming to the Championship Football Coaches Clinic when we have it in person, and excited to hear you today. So
Sounds good.
when you want to present your screen, Coach, just let me know, and then I just hit a button and it pops up. All right?
Sounds good. I'll go ahead and do that now.
Yes, sir. And if I have any questions, I'll just ask them as I go. Or if anybody's watching on YouTube, you can comment and it'll pop up. Coach is not allowed to talk about any players or recruiting. Just football only questions in the YouTube comments. We had a guy that was wanting to talk about some players, but we can't talk about players per NCAA rules.
Sounds good. All right, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. So if Coach, if there's any questions, can you let me know? I can't see the comments, so if you just let me know, that'd be great.
Yes, sir.
My name is Bobby Jones. I'm a 2014 graduate of Washington and Lee, and now I've come back as our associate head coach and offensive coordinator. I also coach our quarterbacks, coached our offensive line in the past, coached our receivers, tight ends in the past. So coached most of the positions in this offense. This will be my 5th year being a coordinator in this offense. And then next year, 4 seasons, 5 years, just because of the COVID break, obviously. So we're a base triple option shotgun team. I played for Scott Abel, who's down at Davidson. He's one of my closest mentors. He and I talk quite frequently still. And him and Gavin Colleton and Garrett LaRose, our current head coach, when they were all here at WNL, kind of started this offense back in 2010. Since then, it's grown quite a bit, and I put my own little spin on it. And one of the things that we've done now that we didn't used to do is utilizing empty a little bit more. If you guys have questions about the rest of the offense, I'd be more than happy to talk about it. I've got a bunch of clinics ready, but figured this empty clinic would be a little bit more applicable to all offenses, not necessarily just an option scheme. But first off, I won't talk about recruiting specifically, but obviously we are a Virginia-based Division III team. We're going to profile most closely like an Ivy League or a NESCAC or a UAA team. Virginia is the biggest state represented on a roster, followed by Georgia and Texas. So if any of you guys out there listening have just that kid that's in the top 10% of their class, taking a bunch of AP classes, doing really well on the SAT or the ACT, our averages are right there on the screen. They're a little bit higher than that, but that's where we kind of start. We are test optional right now, so don't let the test be a deterrent. But if you have a kid that's in a bunch of AP or IB classes getting mostly A's, maybe a few B's in the top 10% of their class, please let me know. All of my contact information will be at the end of this presentation. We recruit nationally. We have 27 different states on the team, 3 different countries. So we have to go all over to find these kids. And it lends into what I'm going to talk about today and what we do, because we do ask our kids to be a little bit intelligent on the field, trying to lean into some of the things that we offer.
Hey, Coach, can I say something about Scott Abel real quick?
Absolutely.
You know, Scott Abel, for y'all that don't know, Scott was a former high school coach in Virginia at Amherst High School. He was one of the best high school coaches in Virginia. He actually had the first clinic. I think he called it the Central Virginia Football Coaches Clinic. It was in a hotel in Charlottesville. It's the first clinic I ever went to, and it's one of the reasons I started our clinic, the Championship Football Coaches Clinic. And he left Amherst to be the offensive coordinator at WNL, and then he became the head coach, and now he's at Davidson, made the national playoff. So I just wanted to say that about Coach, and I know how important he's been to you, Coach, but for a guy that just knew him as, you know, a coach in the state, he's meant a lot to me. And he's a big name, and he's got a lot of fans. So
there's no question. And if you were to ask Coach Abel or John Berlin, who's his associate head coach and defense coordinator, both of whom coached me, he says that he is the coach today now from having been a high school football coach. He actually was my high school rival. I played at Heritage High School in Lynchburg, Virginia for my high school ball. So he reminds me quite often they got the better of us. Coach Brad Bradley and Lynchburg has those guys rolling. But anyway, jumping back into this. So why we went empty? This is our base set. This is our base 2x2 set with our tight end wing here. Hopefully you guys can see my mouse, and our receiver wing over here. This is our base set. In 2018, when I first came back to WNL, after having been at a Division II school as an under center flex one guy in North Dakota, These were some of the defenses we were getting. We call this just a 6-1. It's just a 4-3 where they walk up the outside backers onto the line of scrimmage. But, I mean, goodness gracious, the safeties are at almost 6 yards. And so we were getting a lot of what we call 10v10, 1v1. These 10 guys all within about 6-7 yards of the box, and then one corner just one-on-one here with this wide receiver. Different variation of it here from Randolph-Macon, who's in the state, who's a really good program and a big rival of ours. Very similar front, right? There's a 2-backer shell now instead of a Mike, but it's still a very similar front, 10v10, kind of 1v1 out here. And so one of our early answers back then was to go trips, right? Try and open it up, either go trips flex and have this tight end flex out, or receiver come in with a different personnel package, or open it up to the trip side. Well, teams are doing a really good job of just playing squeeze scrape here with this tight end because we didn't have a wing over here, this backward give over the top, and then just playing 3-over-3, all with kind of forced angles on these receivers, just making some of the stuff on the perimeter a little bit more difficult. So what we decided to do, come on, hold on, there we go. This is why we went empty. So we wanted to make the defense cover the entire field. Take a shot at home if you've heard an offensive coordinator say that. But the field's a 53 and a third yards long. Got to make the defense respect you horizontally. We'll get into some of that stuff. Being a super high academic school, we're limited at times with who our best ball carriers are. At times it's our feature, what we call O-back, or a lot of people would call the B-back. Sometimes it's those A-back slots coming in motion. Sometimes it's the receiver. A couple years ago, you'll see him on the film. We had a kid from Nashville, Tennessee, who couldn't block to save his soul, but was just a dynamic receiver, and that's not something we normally do a lot of. But empty helped us get him in space a little bit easier. Concept for simplicity, formational diversity, something I talk about a lot. We do have really smart kids, but probably similar to you guys in high school, they're always coming to late practice because they have a class that runs late. They have to leave early for a speaker. We lose kids in the middle of the week for job interviews all the time. So we don't have a lot of time, and we probably have just about as much meeting time as you guys do. I've got the quarterbacks for about 25 minutes before practice, and our starting quarterback comes late to practice every day but Thursday because of his class schedule. So we have to keep things simple internally and then try and present it with window dressing being a little bit more diverse, and we try and do that through formations as well as passing efficiency. If you were to ask Scott Abel or myself, or even those guys that work for him or work here with us at WNL, we like to think that we modernized triple option football. Being in the gun is just a little bit easier to be efficient in passing, but we're not some crazy three read progression team running 4 verts a million different ways and running mesh. But being an empty helped us be a little bit more efficient throwing the ball, as well as keeping things a little bit more simple for our quarterback. Here's just a quick snapshot of schematics. I won't spend a lot of time on this. This is what we start with. This is our day one speed option out of empty. It's kind of the base play that we run. When we're in empty, we'll run it both to the tight end and to the trip side. We'll flex it out and run that. We'll crack arc it. You can hear the terms that we use with our own kids. So you'll see this picture very briefly. I'll talk about it, but the film's a little bit more helpful. So here we are. This is the game. This team is playing that almost the exact same defense. I showed that first slide, that 6-1, that 4-3, where the linebackers on each side just walk up the line of scrimmage. These safeties are playing a little bit deeper. This is Sewanee University of the South, a historic rival for us at WNL, a well-coached team. These safeties have backed up a little bit because the year before we heard them on a couple things, especially in empty from our slot receivers. They backed the safeties up a little bit, but as you can see, very similar shell to that first thing that we showed. So here we're just going to run speed option to the field to our tight end wing side. This is something our kids do the very first day of camp, and this is literally a day one play for these guys. They can block it in their sleep, I have no doubt. The tight angle is a little bit more helpful. We'll get to that here in a moment. But as you can see, pretty simple stuff. He just all of a sudden this just looks like every speed option you've ever seen. He's just coming from a hipped up wing position and empty, as opposed to being in the backfield running some form of speed option. They are very tall, lanky quarterback. He's pretty fast, but he's tall, so he looks like he's Gumby out there running sometimes.
Coach, let me ask you
again. Go ahead.
Let me ask you about like your pitch relationship and
Yes,
your
sir.
coaching points for your quarterback. What is y'all's pitch relationship?
Yes, sir. So our pitch relationship, we want to be, it's a little bit different when we're in empty. So when we're when we're in a base set and there's a B back there in the backfield, what we call an O back with the quarterback, we always say that the slot or A back, we call them slots, needs to be behind the mesh as the mesh is happening in order to get his timing through the hips of the B back. Clearly here in empty, there is no B back. So for him, he needs to be. It's different for every kid, right? This is our best player who's about to come in motion. He's a little bit faster. So we predicated off of our cadence, and then it's adjusting all the way through camp, just based on the speed of each player. But they want to be 5 to 7 yards outside of the quarterback, and what we say is a half step behind. Our first coaching point to those kids in fall camp is we want to make the referee uncomfortable. We had 2 pitches dropped this season, and both were called incomplete passes because they were pitched forward. So being in the gun, being 5 yards there behind the center, we do have a little bit more leeway in terms of the relationship, because when I was coaching under center, sometimes this guy would come in motion and, man, it felt like you were pitching the ball 5-6 yards behind the line of scrimmage, or behind the quarterback, because he's trying to keep up. Whereas being in the gun, this guy can almost be on the same line and start coming downhill. So again, just the quick coaching points, 5 to 7 yards outside of the quarterback. And then for the quarterback, being the scheme that we are, again, we only have 3 quarterbacks on the roster. We don't have a million quarterbacks, just being a high academic school. So we can't afford for those guys to get hurt very often. So for our quarterback, he's taught as soon as the pitch back, which here is the slot, is outside of the pitch key, he wants to give that thing up. We're not like an under center triple team where we're replacing the dive key's heels or anything like that. He wants to catch the ball and go completely perpendicular to the line of scrimmage for his first 2 to 3 steps. A little bit different for this quarterback because he's 6'5", so he's only 2 steps, whereas our 5'9", 5'10" quarterbacks are 3 because they're a little bit shorter and not quite as long. They want to be completely perpendicular to the sideline. So time to clear. And the thing that's really nice about that for us is when we're running triple and he leaves his mesh, if he's going to pull the ball, it's the exact same step progression. He's going to 1, 2, 3 and or 1, 2 if he's not 6'5", or if he is 6'5", excuse me, to help clear the read. So all that is for spacing and timing. So you'll see our quarterback here catches, and he goes completely perpendicular to the line of scrimmage. You can see our pitch relationship. We are every bit of 5 to 7 yards here. And we'll see what that does to coach's point in asking the question. So here's our pitch key, right? This is the guy that we're blocking. Our A-back is responsible for the first guy over top to outside the pitch key, which is obviously this high safety. So he's going to come up here and arc to here. Our offensive line's and tight end is responsible for blocking everybody inside the pitch key. Our perimeter players are responsible for blocking everybody outside the pitch key. So our tight end's going to zone double here to the mic, and the rest of us are going to just zone scoop here to the front side. But you can see, because of the pitch relationship of our wing, to coach's point, that clearly the job that they're playing here is I'm responsible for taking the pitch, and eventually the safety's going to fit inside and he's going to make the play. Now this one, I think he misfits and we exploit it. But you can see how quickly he has to declare. I mean, I'm not very fast these days, but I can make this decision because that pitch key's hips are completely turned. We talk a lot about hip and eye intention at quarterback play. The hips of the pitch key can't lie, where sometimes his shoulders can. The hips are completely turned. So the quarterback knows almost by his second step that he's keeping the football. You can see how quickly he tucks the ball and starts getting downhill. And this is our whole job as play callers, right? This is one of our better ball players. He's not super fast, but, man, he's a heady player, very savvy, very physical. My job is to put him in space. Now, the film quality is not great here, but as you can see, I mean, that's a pretty good amount of space here between our wall of white and where our pitch key is. That's my job, and that's what empties help us do a little bit, trying to get those ball players in space. At third level, be an athlete. He gets an angle. He's able to outrun that guy, which is nice for a nice score here.
You know,
some better film. This is great. Go ahead, Coach.
I was just going to say, like, I think that the option offense is something that you have to marry. You really can't date it.
Oh, you don't. Yeah, you don't minor an option.
Yeah, and but what you just told me, I mean, is important, because I was thinking maybe the pitch relationship is 5x2 or how they used to say, but it's interesting that you said that really you don't want the running back or the pitch guy to be that far behind the quarterback, because if there is a fumble, the referees could call it a forward pass, and that's actually a good thing.
Absolutely. We had 2 of those this year. One of them popped off the ground and hit the A-back right in the hands, and he would have scored a touchdown. So that one stung. The
and then, like,
would have been a problem.
The way you teach your quarterback, you know, one year at Virginia Union, our best run play, our only run play, was speed option because they played cover 0 all the time. Mm-hmm. I was thinking the quarterback would be downhill right now at the defensive end, but the way you're teaching it is he's going lateral for 3 steps. It's almost like in the wing tee, a buck sweep, when the guy gets the ball and then he goes downhill. So, I mean, I just picked up 2 things.
Very similar. And again, so there's nothing wrong with teaching your quarterbacks to get downhill right now. When I was at Springfield College, which is one of the best places to learn triple option football with Mike Sarasulo there, Mike DeLong for a long time. That's what they do, and that's what you do in that offense. But for us, just give it right. Your scheme should match who you are culturally as a school. And for us, we're a high academic school. We need to do things a little bit differently because the ODAC, our league, the Old Dominion Athletic Conference, is very talented. It's very, very well coached. So we need to be a little bit different because there are times where we're out athleted.
Yeah.
And so this is one of the ways that we are different. And so because of marrying with that as well, we are roster capped. We're roster capped at 90. So we don't have a million quarterbacks. So we're trying to get him to be a point guard, not necessarily to be our ball carrier at all times.
I mean, you're slowing the read down. You're making it easier for your player to make a decision. It's not like right now, like a blood stunt, dudes. Boom.
Especially when we're running triple. Now we're running triple out of empty here, obviously. But when you're running triple, when you're under center, right, you get that blood stunt like you're talking about, that hard 1-2 off the edge. That can be really, really tough and in the quarterback's face, and he's worried about his feet and the mesh point. When you're in the gun, he's got a little bit more time. He's got a little bit more space, which is really
good. And a team that does a great job of this in high school football is Highland Springs. Mm-hmm. They do a great job of running speed option, and they run it very similar to y'all. So I appreciate you doing this today.
Yes, sir. So here we are, same formation. This is Bridgewater College and ODAC. And the ODAC, this is 2019. They're conference champs this year. It's actually the only time all year that they trailed. Really, really well coached team. Mike Giancarlo, the defense coordinator, is a good friend of mine. Does a great job. But again, this helps simplify some things for us. So we actually shifted. We started in our 2x2 set with our tight end wing over here and our receiver over here, and we shifted this. We got them a little bit confused. They got realigned. But all the same rules still apply. We're going to pitch off the last man outside of our in-man line of scrimmage, our last lineman rather. That's this guy right here. He's in the slot. This kid right here was a dynamic receiver. We put him in the slot. Teams are just unwilling to put their corners in the slot. So a lot of times he was matched up on safeties. You'll see as I get through this presentation a little bit further, some of the things that we're doing in the pass game with it. We put our best receiver and always put him at number 2 just because it helps with the matchup things. But because of that, this season he was on a tear. They've really, really widened this apex defender to try and help with quick game, and then they're going to cap him here with this safety for anything deep. But it helped make speed option a little bit clearer for us. So we're going to pitch there. He's going to block man on. We certainly have our schemes where he'll crack and we'll arc, or we'll double crack in arc number 3. But he's there. We never block the pitch key, so our receiver here is going to get all the way to the one high safety. Our A-back's going to come up to this, what I call rover. He's kind of playing, as you can see, here's the safety, here's the mic. He's kind of playing between those 2 levels. He was an East Carolina transfer. He was an absolute animal, really good player. I call that the rover. He's going to go there, and then we're going to zone double up to the mic and then zone cut off everybody else. You'll get another really good snapshot here of the quarterback's progression. Again, you see how he catches it, and he's straight down, right? I mean, you can almost draw a straight line on this hash for the path that he's going to take. That's where he takes. Again, same thing. We're looking at the pitch key, number 15 there in the slot. His hips right now turn to that receiver. Again, that receiver is a pretty gosh darn talented player. So I think they were trying to help slow him down, to not let us be explosive. So you can see really by the quarterback's 3rd step, he's starting to get downhill, hash number sideline. But you can see he's tucked the ball here pretty quickly because he knows pretty quickly and early on that he's going to be the ball carrier on this play.
And then they're playing 4 eyes against y'all.
3rd level, some guys come back. Yes, sir, they were. And anyone that's been an offensive line coach, which I am, I have been, rather, I've been our quarterbacks coach this year. But anyone that's been an offensive line coach knows how much of a pain in the butt 4 eyes can be. And so if they're going to give you that edge with the 4 eye, right, all your power, all your down gap schemes, all your zone schemes are tougher with that 4 eye, right? Well, you've got to take advantage of when that guy's a 4 eye because you've got to make your money somehow. And so he's playing a head up 4, but he stepped into B gap every single play. So we're going to zone double this guy, which allows us to pitch off somebody else. Allows us to get a body on 52, more importantly, because he was really, really good. You can see here they slipped it. We have a couple different calls how we handle 4 eyes. So this one, he's just going to down block, and then he's going to free release up, or they can zone double. They have a couple different combinations they can make there. But again, you can see pitch relationship's pretty good. It's a little tight. That's probably right at 5 yards. It gets better as he starts going downhill. Really forces that key to declare. I mean, you can't even see the pitch key barely in the screen. He's all the way out here. So the quarterback's going to. I mean, he's already got the ball tucked. This has got to be his 3rd step. He's going to get downhill. And again, once you get to the safety level, it's just up to your kid being a player. And he lost a shoe. So here it is against Christopher Newport in Virginia. The situation.
Hey, Coach.
Yes, sir.
Is your mic, is it on your laptop? Because I'm like,
Yes, sir.
if you can get your mic closer to your mouth, sometimes we're losing you a little bit, and you're giving such good information. If you can just bring that laptop closer.
Sounds good. Yes, sir. Is that a little bit better?
Yeah.
I'll try and talk a little bit louder too.
No, I think you just got to be closer. You're good.
Sounds good.
Yeah, you're good right now.
Sounds good. So here we are playing Christopher Newport. It's late in the game. It's a drive we really needed to score longer, but I'm going to show it for a reason. You can see our back starts to come in motion here, and our quarterback stops him and resets him. The reason for that is the most important thing for us anyway, and for probably any option scheme or heck any scheme at all, is all of your kids being on the same page. So the way that every single play for us begins is all of our kids are going to communicate who the keys are. That goes for our tackles, our guards, and obviously our perimeter players and the quarterback. And the quarterback's the guy that has the ultimate say. So right here, they're actually wrong by how we coach it, who we'd say to pitch off. They're actually wrong, but they're all wrong together. And that's something that we talk about a lot. I'd rather all of our kids be wrong together than one kid have it right and us not all be on the same page. So that's what's happening here. The play clock's running. Number 9, Jack Pollard from Douglas Freeman, is a great player for us. He notices that we're not on the same page, and you can see he stops the play. He sends the slot back. We reset. We're all now on the same page. So we end up pitching off of this guy this inside linebacker right here. He's really, really wide. You'll see when we get to the tight film. Instead of this guy, our day one rules would say to pitch off of this guy. But instead, we're all on the same page. So our number 1 receiver is going to block man on. Our number 2 receiver is going to block man on. And our front side A-back is going to arc all the way out here to this overhang leverage player. And we're going to pitch off this wide back who's been giving us some problems. Again, not how I would draw it up, not how I would block it, but all of our kids are wrong together. You can see the guard right here looking back at the quarterback because he's got ultimate say. They're wrong together. We're all on the same page, and it ends up being a good play for us.
So let me ask you, Coach, if you were going to pitch off of that guy that your wingback is blocking, who would he block? Would you have a double team on the number 2 guy?
So no, he would do what we call it, because again, this is where all the communication comes, right? These guys are canceled out. These guys are canceled out. Who's the first guy? Here's the pitch key. If we're blocking it that way, who's the first guy over top to outside the pitch key? Well, it's just these 2 guys. They've already communicated with some of our calls who they're blocking. So then he would end up being what we call a wall checker. Wall for us just means any second level player. So he would check his linebacker, and if our offensive line took care of him, then he'd go all the way back to this backside safety. A much better way to block it, at least in my opinion. The angles are much better. But again, I'd rather us all be wrong together. For whatever reason, that's the call they made, but they're all on the same page. Our frontside A-back does a really good job staying flat, getting that apex defender. That's a heck of a block. It's a really hard block for anybody to coach those guys out there. Our pitch pass not great. This is a longer drive for us. Number 4 is pretty gassed at this point, I think. His relationship's not great, but he gets there late. We pitch late. You can see our perimeter blocking is really, really good. For me, offensive football's culture is defined by how you block when you don't have the ball. It defines how much you care about your teammates. Our number 1 receiver here does a great job. He holds this block for forever. That's a really long, hard block. Good play happens. Big touchdown for us. We'll see it better from the right. Yeah. So you can see how wide this inside backer was. I mean, he's wider than a 50. I mean, he's out there. So we'd had some problems with him earlier. We do some inside run game stuff. We'll see here in a little bit. Again, I would have pitched off this guy you can't even see on the screen. For whatever reason, these 2 guys had a miscommunication and decided this guy was going to be the pitch key. They were right. They were wrong together. That means we're right. We're all on the same page. So now these guys are going to zone double up here to number 40. We're going to zone block all the way backside here. And then you guys already saw the perimeter. It's a great atmosphere. The band was getting into it. It was a really fun game.
Hey, Coach, how do you teach the pitch?
Yep. So we're a thumb down pitch. If you guys, some people do dead ball. I know Springfield College has done dead ball in the past. I taught that when I was there. We're a thumb down pitch. To be honest with you, the easiest answer is repetitions, but the biggest coaching point far and away is the ball's always got a lot of different ways. I always say between the nipples. The ball can't dip. But a lot of quarterbacks that don't do a lot of pitching, and our kids do it a lot, obviously. What a lot of kids do is they let the ball drop below their belt. And when you let your hands drop below the belt, when you pitch the ball, is the only way you can get it. Your arm angle's got to go where? It's got to go kind of down to up, right? So when you're doing that, the ball goes where? It goes high. So for us, that's something you can constantly hear us talking about. We do a lot of drills. So if this is the field, here's obviously the yard lines, and like here's the end zone here. we'll have our quarterbacks go perpendicular. So we'll have a quarterback here. We'll have a quarterback here. They'll have one ball and they'll run down the field and they'll pitch to each other and they'll start getting width. So you'll see them sink strike. They'll sink those hips. They'll sink and dip and they'll pitch the ball thumb down. We'll do that. I mean, that's an easy way to get, I mean, goodness gracious, like 30 pitches in like a 3-minute span, because they'll go down, they'll come back. That's a super efficient drill. A lot of times when we're in special teams, we're a 6-man staff. I have to help on special teams. I'll assign our quarterbacks to do things like easy drills like that when I'm not there. So really simple things you can get your kids doing. But again, the one coaching point I would say, whether you're doing dead ball or thumb down, which we're thumb down here, you'll see in slow-mo, is that ball's got to stay high. Even here, that ball's a little bit low, but it's above his belt. If that ball ever goes below your belt, you're in big trouble.
So I learned heart to heart. That was what the old school coaches, heart to heart.
Heart to heart's a good one. You can see my great vertical here on the side. I'm here on the sideline. Nice vertical when we score. Not the athlete I used to be. Like I said, we say don't let it go below your pecker. Obviously, you can't say that always, but that's what we say, and something we coach a lot. So here we're running the same thing. We're getting into a little bit of different formations. This is the same formation, but we stacked them 1 and 2 receiver. This young man from Shenandoah is a 5th year, is a great player, very physical. We do a little bit of now screen stuff, which is in this clinic. So we'd stack these 2 guys here just to give those guys a little bit of a different look. It would also allow us to crack a little bit easier. Just trying to loosen up that defender a little bit, but same thing. There's a 4-eye. He's almost a 3 technique here. So we decided that we're going to pitch off number 30, get a little bit of a miscommunication here. So we end up running what I call quarterback run around the edge because we block everybody. I mean, there's no pitch player here, but you can see it's a great play if you're getting 4 eyes. If you're getting 4 eyes or 3s, you're just going to leverage the formation very, very quickly. Don't know how that wasn't a late hit, but it's okay. So again, you can see these 4 eyes. Shenandoah's defensive line this year, they were great. Hats off to those guys. They coached them well. These 3 guys that are down, these 4 guys, they were really, really talented. But especially when they're in 4 eyes or almost 3s, almost a bear front, it's really, really tough on your tackles and guards for the interior run game. So you've got to be able to take advantage of it. This was an easy way for us to capture the edge. This was an All-American, Ben Bergen. He's also a 5th year, so we're going to put a body on him. And we're going to zone double there to the mic. You can see how quickly our quarterback leverages the mic, right? The mic is cheating with the motion, and our quarterback leverages him within his first 2 steps. So being that, again, that lateral to the sideline, perpendicular to the sideline footwork really, really helps you leverage some players pretty quickly. Now, again, we have a little bit of a miscommunication on who we're blocking here, so we end up running all the way around the edge. Same team, same game. Now we're running it. Obviously, we have our little check with knee stop as well. Very similar play here in a second. Film to load. Same thing, different quarterback. Get to the tight so you can see what he sees. Again, at some point, empty, right? They're not always going to do it exactly the way I want it. They're not going to do the way they're not going to make the same decision I would want. Sometimes your quarterback sees throws that you don't. Sometimes he sees lanes that you don't. My job, again, is to put him in space. Number 17 is a really good athlete. He hasn't quite gotten to the pitch key, but you can see him see the lane right here. He water bugs through it. It's a nice gain of 8. We're running into the boundary a bunch. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit, fellas, just because I don't want to – there's a couple things I want to get to, and I don't want to take up too much time. So hitting back on formational diversity, concept, simplicity. So here's that same exact play for us. Now we're going to run it out of a quads formation with a little bit. We'll split this guy out as a true number 1 receiver, or we'll hip him up. You'll see both. All we're doing is we're adding another blocker to the party, but to the defense, quads unbalanced empty is a very different thing than the last formation we just had up there. But to our kids, this picture looks literally exactly the same as the one I showed you earlier. So again, just trying to stack concepts on top of themselves and do the window dressing with the formations instead of a different play. So here we are, we're in quads. We're going to be running speed option here to this side, to the trip side, to the quad side. Here's our pitch key. We've all already communicated that. These guys have communicated who they're blocking. I'm going to run off, blocking man on. I've got the mic. I've got the safety. He's the first defender over top to outside of the pitch key. You're going to see, right, different formation. He's split out as the number 1 receiver, and we'll run some routes with him, and we'll run speed option here at him. But once he starts going in motion, it's the exact same thing we just did. So you can see here, same relationship. Here's a little bit of kind of that blood stunt you're talking about. A hard 1-2 is what I call it. 1 speed option. That ball gets out quick. You can see again that pitch is forward, right? I mean, you can see that's a forward pitch right there. All about reps. We've done this 9 million times in practice. This game for putting one of our best ball carriers in space. We do get caught, unfortunately. So again, you can see we've communicated this guy. Here's our pitch key. Perimeter players responsible for everybody outside the pitch key. Offensive line and tight ends responsible for everybody inside the pitch key. Again, great technique, kind of a bear kind of look. He's going to second level release. These guys are going to zone double back to number 7. You can see how the quarterback's taught as soon as he's outside of the pitch key, give the ball up. He's outside very quickly, obviously.
Coach, let me ask you something.
Yes, sir.
There's an old saying about option football, and I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it's turn it into a toss. Make that guy pitch the ball in the backfield, like a toss. It turns into a toss. So, but when that quarterback gets out on the perimeter, and that's when, man, I mean, everybody in the stadium, they get scared. Have you ever heard of this philosophy or anyone say that?
When I was at Springfield College, a lot of it was trying to turn everything laterally. Is what everybody tried to do to us, and run it down in the alley, and run to make everything go east and west instead of north and south. And that's why, to your comment earlier, you got to be committed to what you do. There's a million ways to win a football game. Again, Shenandoah, who's in our league, they had a great year for us, or for them rather. Typically, they're going to throw the ball 77 times a game. Sure, it's a little different. That's commitment, right? That's their identity. Our identity is we're going to be 80% run the ball. We're committed to our identity. So if teams are going to do those things to you, you have to have the answer. And that's one of the biggest things to me. We don't have many plays. To be honest, I'm looking at our install schedule right there on my whiteboard in front of me. By the 5th day, we are completely done installing. And we've got some more formations that we had after that. So you don't have to have a million plays, but you have to have the counter punch ready. The time not to have the counter punch isn't after you've lost the game and you're trying to think, well, they kept 3-2 exchanging us, or they kept blood stunning us, or whatever thing they're getting, or match quarters, or whatever's giving you problems. You need to think of those things throughout the week, and that's our job as coaches. So to your point, teams that want to always do that, you've got to have the counter punch. So after I get done with this clip, I'll move on, because the next section of this is ways to protect this motion and ways to protect this play, because this play is super efficient for us. It's not always the most explosive, but it's wildly efficient for us. My firm belief is that 70% of the time your plays should be averaging 4 or more yards, or else they're not efficient. Now, clearly, you take out touchdowns that are less than 4 yards, all those different things, even some short yardage, 3rd and 1, if you get a first down, that's still efficiency. But this play has been over the last 3 years, has been wildly efficient for us. And so teams want to take it away. So you have to have the answers and the counter punches. You'll see some of those here after I get done with this clip right here. Same play, different look. This is Randolph-Macon, Richmond. Obviously, great team. This is one of the best games I've ever been involved in. Scored a touchdown with 0 seconds on the clock, game-winning 2-point conversion, 99-yard drive to win it. So here's the first play of that 99-yard drive. We're running it here on the goal line. Now, I'd say this pitch relationship, he's a little early, isn't he? That's a little bit wider than 5 to 7. So, again, you got to just trust your kids. They know what to do. This quarterback, number 9, Jack Pollard, is a freakish athlete. He's a great player for us. He was able to get the ball there. Obviously, that ball's in the air for a long time. A very similar concept here for us. Really good perimeter blocking. Got us out of the shadow of our own goal post, which was really nice to give us some space for 8. Let me move on to this next thing here then. So again, if you're going to run these plays, right, and defensive coordinators are smart too, if you're going to keep having a lot of success with these plays, you better have the counter punch. So here's the first play of the game against Emory and Henry. Again, really, really good team that used to be in our league. They moved up to Division II. A lot of respect to them. Had some great players. We had lost our quarterback to injury, and we'd lost our starting quarterback to injury in preseason before the season even began. This is our 3rd string kid, only quarterback on the roster this game. It's the very first play of the game. This defense was wildly aggressive, a lot of cover 0 stuff, really, really downhill, really, really fast, very athletic. We knew we needed to take some shots early to try and slow them down a little bit to help our 3rd string quarterback out a little bit. So here's the first play of the game. We get a lot of what I call cross keying. So as this A-back goes in motion, all the eyes of the defense are going to be on this opposite A-back. He's going to tell you where the ball goes. If we're running speed option, he's going to arc out, right? Well, we're going to run a play action. It's going to look exactly the same. So he's gonna come in motion. He's gonna fake a speed option. Our quarterback's gonna come down the line like a speed option and set up. He's gonna arc and run a wheel, and then he's gonna fake stalk and go. Got to try and throw your play actions in not obvious passing situations, obviously. First play of the game certainly helps that. You can see we're running our offensive line to try and match that kind of speed option look. I'm a big believer that anytime your quarterback moves his spot, so he's not right behind the center, the play action is a little bit more effective. So you can see right here that safety that's on number 2 is getting ready for the stalk. Just takes a second. Again, trying to create opportunity for one of our best players. Again, number 10, great player for us, terrible blocker. So we had to find ways to get him the ball, which the option or receiver can be tough sometimes. This is one of the ways that we did it.
So O-line just they sprint protection.
Yeah, it's sprint protection. We have a couple little built-in rules to it, but yeah, it's just your base day one sprint protection. This season I was the offensive line coach in the film season that's on right now. So you've got a 5-man pro and empty or a 6-man pro and empty, you get nervous because there's Grayson Overstreet, who's a great player running through that gap completely unblocked. But we're able to beat him with the timing of the play, which is nice. So again, you can see the quarterback. I wish he did a little bit better job sailing with his eyes, but again, you can see when he's off his spot, it's a pretty effective play. Here's another one. This is we're pretty banged up at this point. That's a running back playing quarterback there, but a little bit of a different motion. But again, you can see what those A-backs are doing. When we're in empty, we're going to run the ball in the perimeter quite a lot. So right here, we're just running quarterback outside zone with some motion to the opposite side. A lot of teams do this. It's pretty effective for us in empty just because you can see what it does to the defense. Everybody's sprinting outside. Really, really good short yardage and goal line play. You start getting a little bit more aggressive, quite a bit. Oops, put it up there. Here's another one. So very similar concept. So again, we'll bring this guy in motion, a little bit of a different personnel grouping because now we're in 2 tight ends, but we're still got our A-backs and our receiver out here. He's going to arc outside. A lot of times this safety was coming across. He'd either come downhill and he'd match our receiver. This backside safety would start looking to the vertical to the opposite side. So we added this little wrinkle to it. Same thing. Quarterback's going to push laterally down the line of scrimmage. He's going to set up, and it's just a tight end throwback. Block the tight end for a second. Wish he'd block for a split second longer because he probably would score a touchdown. That corner sees it late and he's able to hawk us down. But again, really simple. We only have 2 pass protections. We have a drop protection and a play action protection. They're very, very simple. Our offensive line, that's the only 2 they have to know, which is nice. Again, you can see the flow of the defense that we're getting. I don't even think the Mike linebacker knew the ball was thrown. You can see how far outside the box he is by the time our quarterback sets up. Pretty easy throw and catch there. Easy way to try and sneak the tight end a reception, just kind of try and sneak him out the back door. Here's another one. Sorry, the film's not great on this clip, but here's another one. Again, we block a lot of outside zone, jet sweep outside zone. It's literally a day one play for us. So we were thinking, well, how can we dress this up formationally to run the same play and not add a scheme to our offensive line? That's what this play is here. We'll go to the tight. It's just easier to see. The same thing. We're in that traditional set that we're in a lot. He's going to come in motion like we're running speed option a heck of a lot. These guys are going to block their outside zone rules. And then he's just going to come underneath just like he does on jet sweep, and he's going to receive that. It's technically a pass because it's on the quarterback, and they don't hand it off. And we're going to run that little reverse. So I'm a big believer that, at least in the option, that reverse isn't a gimmicky play or a trick play, so to speak. For me, it's a counter. If it gets 5 yards, awesome. I don't care if it's only 5 yards. I'm just trying to slow the defense down. That's all I'm trying to do. So you can see right here, the thing I liked about this play the most is that it wasn't expensive. It was really, really cheap. The offensive line, they didn't even know anything because it's the same. Again, it's a day one outside zone blocking rules for them. For this front side slot, there's a little bit of teaching just because usually he comes in motion, receives his handoff on a jet sweep. But it's a pretty similar action. And you can see the movement of the defense that we get. I mean, the backers outside the second tight end by the time the ball's pitched. Good little play for us. Coming up in a minute. Skip this one for now. This is just speed option again. I'm not sure why. Sometimes Huddle reorders your clips. It's really frustrating. So that's just speed option again. Here's the last one I'll show, and then I'll get to one of our other run plays, and then we'll get to some pass game stuff or whatever else you guys want to see. Same thing. This is a better clip of it. The film's a little bit better. He's going to come in motion. This is a little bit quick. Our front side A-back comes back, or backside A-back comes back a little quick for this reverse. But you can see, I mean, the kids love this play because it's a funky little motion. It looks like the pop passes that the pros do all the time. So our kids like doing that part of it. But it's a really, really effective, pretty cheap counter for us. For me, again, just for how how effective that speed option play is for us. I've got to try and find ways to protect that motion, to slow that safety down. You can see number 13, Bill Pickering, great player for Sydney. How aggressive he is to the motion to get them off his spot. And again, for our offensive line, they're blocking something they block all the time. To get to the next run concept here, unless you guys have any questions for me, there's a bunch more counter stuff here that I could show if you really wanted. We do run a decent amount of inside zone, so we'll run it with our quarterback as well. We will only do this when we have two quarterbacks that we really like, and this would be kind of the backup quarterback's role. If you've got a really, really effective first year or freshman for you, whatever, empty is a lot easier to learn for us than our stuff. So this is a really effective way to have that backup quarterback get some reps, some hits with your starting quarterback. This is Drew Richardson from Georgia. He was 225, could bench the house. He's a really strong player. So we ran a lot of quarterback inside zone with him. So you'll see that motion that comes. We'll get to the tightest better. You'll see that motion that comes. So you're going to try and get the defense to widen a little bit like you're running speed option. Then you'll see the quarterback take this rocker step right there. That rocker step isn't really – that's what we call this a rocker step. It's not really to try and take the defense out like you're running speed option. It's for the timing of the double team. Because when you're running inside zone, what happens? The quarterback's got to – there's a mesh that he has to go through with the running back, right? Well, if you're an empty, there's no mesh, obviously. So if you get up there too quickly, the offensive line hasn't had time for their double teams to really hit. So we just do this rocker step more for timing, just pull the quarterback down past the air. Doing our double team there. You can see our double team really good here. We double the backside, 2 high, 2 technique, double the front side, 3, and then we end up doubling the 770 for tight end wing as well. Quarterback's looking for the first gap out. He's technically showing a D gap, more like a D gap again. And again, really good block on our second level for that receiver backside cracking that safety allows to really hit the explosive here. We get caught. We do that a lot. Same thing, different team. Same thing. You can see that speed option release. You can see what the Mike's doing. We really hurt Swanee this game with our speed option package. You can see the Mike gets up outside the hash. We're running right where he vacates. We end up not even blocking him. The rocker step for timing again. So there it is right there. Our quarterback's a little bit wide, but he's for the first gap. There it is. Again, for this play, I wouldn't recommend running it if you've only got one quarterback or you just don't have a lot of depth, because this is obviously a little bit more of a physical play. Get to the variation. So we'll do things like this. Again, this is making very, very well-coached team. The hat goes off to them. But sometimes when you have well-coached teams, you can try and take that advantage. You can try and take that advantage and use it against them. We knew Macon was really well-coached. We knew that when we went in motion, they were going to cross. So you can see what happens to the defense here. So we just let's make a formation where we get an extra body. Let's motion him to try and get the defense to go this way. And then we'll run this day one play right back here the opposite side. You'll see the quarterback takes his rocker step opposite this time, and then he's going to run quarterback outside or inside zone right back from that motion came from. You can see it gets the defense to move quite a bit. 29-yard time, we really needed it. Able to get I don't know why Huddle does that. Able to get a lot of movement out of the defense. We don't even touch the Mike linebacker. Get a good play out of it. There's one more clip of it, and then we'll move on to the next thing. Same thing. We're in quads. We motion that guy. We do a lot of stuff where we motion that guy. We're going to run inside zone right back at it. Just block this blend. Bunch of variation stuff I can show you guys. Let's get into a little bit of the pass game. This is our base pass out of empty. It's our number one passing play. If they've got a really good receiver, we're going to put it in the slot. It's a slot scheme. Our check down's going to be a team back. They'll come back. We'll move on this side here a couple times as well. You'll see them as well. But again, teams are just unwilling to take this corner and put them in at number 2 because it messes with their rules. So we're trying to really isolate this guy right here, trying to influence the safety to go to the opposite side, trying to get him cross-keying, moving off of his spot to really isolate that number 2 receiver. So here you'll see it. Number 2 is going to run a vertical. This is the game plan. He's going to end up running a speed dig, is what we called it, a 5-yard dig. So it's going to be a little bit different than that 15 to 12 back comeback. You see the vertical. The vertical is capped. Absolutely. We should be throwing the ball to the dig right now. It's our best player, and number one is a really good player for Stonebridge. Ton of space. Our quarterback ends up extending the play. He gets lost. There's a video coming up in a minute. It's a good clip. So I'm sitting the check down. This team again, number 30 was a man-child, really good player. We got a lot of speed option this game. He was really forcing the issue at number 2, right? Cut blocks are gone. So for you guys in high school, now us in college, on the perimeter, we can't cut anymore. For this guy, as soon as he saw this motion, he was going to come downhill right now and just try and knock the socks off at number 2. We had to find some ways to try and help that guy out. So this time we actually changed the motion to come at the play side to get this guy to step up. We'd then run him vertical past him. We end up hitting the check down here instead for the number 2 progression. But you can see what that linebacker number 2 does. He comes downhill right now. We hit the comeback. We don't run many routes, but that's one thing we run a lot. A really big 13-yard gain in a 2-minute drill for us when we needed it. But he gets just like a speed option, because those two guys are coming in motion, one of them's arcing. That's what we want. We want it to look just like speed option for the safeties, just try and get to move off their spot a little bit. Same, we'll add it, we'll tag it as well, where this guy will join and it kind of almost becomes 4 verts. We'll get to the opposite hash. Same thing, our quarterback knew quickly here that he was going to take the check down. We got a penalty, so we're behind the sticks. So our quarterback knew pretty early he was going to throw that ball. Unfortunately, his knee was on the ground, so we don't get the first down. We got the next play. Here we've tagged it to make it 4 verts. Don't quite get across the same opposite safety there, but pretty well. Get to one last step, and I'll move on. But here it is. It's the one high safety. He'd been a pain in our butts all game because he'd be coming downhill and making the tackle and speed option because we couldn't get a body on him because of the front that they had. So we're going to motion. We're going to arc number 2. You can see that safety's cross king chasing the motion. Our quarterback knew pre-snap he was throwing this ball. We run a ton of speed options. If they put a linebacker outside leverage on this guy, trying to really force speed option, force it back inside to the linebacker and safety. We always tell this guy you want to win inside, but if you think you can beat him with speed, beat him with speed. So he's just going to straight vertical release, and the linebacker's not running with our receiver. So our quarterback knew pretty quickly that's where his ball is going. Really, really good play for us. We'll move on to some of our quick game stuff. That's where we've been a lot more efficient. Again, we'll mix things in. We'll stack number 2 and 3. We'll stack number 1 and 2. It's actually the first play of our season. Too often we got out here and we're like, man, this is our best player. It's hard to get him the ball sometimes, but they're playing a little bit off on number 2 or number 3. So like every offense in America, we'll just catch it and how fast can we throw it out there, let our best player go to work. It's Jacob Ramiro from Massaponax, really good player. And then here's some of our quick game stuff. Same thing. Most of our quick game, we're just trying to take advantage of how teams play our speed option. So again, you can see number 30 there on the number 2 receiver being really aggressive coming downhill. We're just going to throw that little in-breaking hitch in right behind him. Nice conversion there on 3rd and 5. It's probably our number 1 quick game concept. We'll either motion a guy at the trips, we'll run double speed out go, or we'll motion him away. We'll just run we call it go out. So 5-yard out there. We get so many guys playing inside leverage here because they want to defend the quarterback inside zone and try and make this arc block here for that slot on speed option tough. So again, you got to take advantage of angles, numbers, and grass. We're going to throw that out there. Not this whole time, but that was a really big play for us to get us down to the goal line. We're on the next play. Here it is again, same thing. We heard this guy earlier. He's playing outside leverage on that speed option touchdown. So now he's playing inside leverage to try and help the alley defender. So now we need to run that speed out. That's a lot of space right there, right? That's a pretty easy throw. It's not how mummy complicated. That's pretty gosh darn simple passing. Coach, I got just a million more clips, but what questions do you guys have, if any, or what do you guys want to talk about?
I mean, with you doing so much motion and being able to speed option, being a spread offense, I always wonder, how do people handle, I mean, I guess you see it all the time, the 6'5" cover zero, but I mean, who could play cover zero when you're motioning the number one receiver across? And I mean, you don't know if the guy's going to run inside zone away from the motion. You don't know whether it's going to be a like Sally or inside reverse coming back.
When we're at our most effective, that's hopefully what teams feel like. We get a lot of man and thirds, and to be honest with you, what we get a lot of is we get man on the number one receiver and then thirds everywhere else. So what those safeties will do, if it's a too high look or camera, the side the motion's coming to, that safety will rock down, and that backside safety will come across, trying to make that middle third player. But really, what he's doing is he's looking for the vertical to the side of the motion, right? Because if you look at Army, Navy, Air Force, you look at Springfield College, we're all going to run that post seam wheel, right? Well, the motion's coming at it. So that backside safety is going to see that post seam or that vertical, whatever you're doing, he's going to take it. And to be honest, that's one of the reasons we ended up getting into empty, because we needed another eligible receiver behind that motion to try and take advantage of that rotation of the safety and hit a ball behind them. Because sometimes our kids just aren't, I love our kids, but sometimes they're not fast enough. Because you're saying, well, how's that backside safety who's playing at 9 going to be able to run with your vertical the opposite side? I got plenty of film where I can show you where they're doing it. So we had to find a different way. We had to find a different way to put our kids in a advantageous situation. And that was one of the ways that we did it, because you can motion that guy still, and then still have two eligibles out there to do your 2-man games or your drop back pass or whatever you want to do.
So when you motion the guy, what's the use of running like a swing pass to that guy or a double move off of him when you could just pitch it to him? I mean, basically doing the same thing. Do you run any double moves? I guess whenever you sprint out, it is like a double move.
Yes, we have a little bit of double moves. For me, and I'm not Lane Kiffin or anything like that. Let's relax. But anytime, like whatever you're most effective at, that's what I always try and have the counter punch. There are times, especially when I had a little bit more hair in my head and I was a younger coordinator, where I would give defensive coordinators too much credit, and I would try and throw the counter punch before they've stopped play. And so for me now, if speed option's working, you're just going to keep running that play, but you've got to have that counter punch in mind. And so for us back in 2019, when we had that stud receiver, we ran a lot of that go and that out to number 10. And here are a lot of teams. Well, then teams started, that corner would play catch halves, or he would try and cheat and peek into that out. And so we ran an out and up, or we ran the vertical. And so to me, the simpler answer to that question is whatever you're good at, that's where your counter punch needs to come from. Like, you can't necessarily, and I've gotten better about this in my career, I'd like to think, where, well, here's our counter. Well, if you're not as good at outside zone from one year to the next, well, then why would your counter be off outside zone if you're not running any? And so for us, that's where a lot of it comes from. And I always like to try and have a run answer and a pass answer. Our quarterback this season unfortunately got hurt. We moved a running back to quarterback because it's just kind of where our depth was at that time. Really, really good runner, really effective athlete. Wasn't necessarily the best passer of the football. So we had to find some run answers. And that's where that little Sally reverse that you saw came from. Instead of just always trying to throw vertical shots, we're an option offense. We're going to throw vertical shots. That's where it needs to come from. But we need to have some higher percentage throws and some higher percentage plays that can be counters, because otherwise they're just going to keep daring you to throw it. And if you're not hitting them, man, 2nd and 10, 3rd and 10 is really tough when you've wasted a play where you could have been running zone dive or something like that to get to 2nd and 7, 2nd and 5. So we try and have a run answer and a pass answer, but we try and build it within our 4 concepts. And so that's what we challenge ourselves as coaches. Can't quite see all of our whiteboards, but there's just tons and tons of different formations we try and draw up so we can run the same concepts, but window dress it enough to try and give teams problems for however they're trying to play us.
Yes, I mean, so your offensive line pretty much is blocking zone to the right or zone to the left. And your counters, you don't have to counter gap. You're not pulling anybody, right?
Our offensive line learns 4 concepts. They learn 2 pros. One's a 3/4 slide and one's a full slide with a lock on the backs on the very last player. And then they learn inside zone and they learn outside zone. Trying to look if there's anything super crazy. That's really, and they learn all those things with a 2-man side and a 3-man surface side. Other than that, that's literally all they learn. And that's not me trying to say that the offensive line stuff is simple. Like, that's how tough it is. Like, those combinations take so much practice, so much time, and there's so much communication that we at least with our meeting time don't feel we can afford to do a lot more of that. So I coached quarterbacks this year, and I installed our jet sweep outside zone play, and I told them to hand off the jet sweep, and they fake quick game. And I was like, wow, we're done. Like, I don't care if it's a 3 technique or a 4-eye, a 7, a 9. a nose. None of that matters to the quarterback here. And it just gave me a deeper appreciation for all the things those kids have to go through. Because on that day one play, they can block it 4 different ways on 4 different plays based on the front of the defense. So because of that, and probably very similar to any high school guys listening, we just don't have enough meeting time or walkthrough time or any of that stuff with those kids to make it really, really complicated. And so we do 4 real true concepts. And of course, week to week, you add an adjustment, you have a wrinkle, all those different things. But the main 85% of the offense is really 2 concepts, because those 2 pass pros are very simple. It's just those 2 run concepts, and we practice it every day. We call it daily medicine is what we call it, because those kids are going to start practice the exact same way the first Tuesday of preseason until week 11. That Tuesday, they're going to do the same thing. They're going to do Step of Champions. They're going to do what we call Roger boards. They're going to do those same things over and over again because they have to be excellent.
Let me ask you, when you run your jet sweep to your wing back, do you always zone it to where you're handing it, or do you ever zone it away and leave that end unblocked?
Yes, we've done it a couple of different ways. Let me pull some film of it up. Better than you guys looking at my face.
Because, I mean, even though you're an empty, you still got 3 guys that could potentially run the ball. You got quarterback and you got 2 wing backs. So
yeah,
it isn't like most empties, like where, the quarterback's the only runner. No, you got 2 other guys there you got to account for in the run game too.
So let me get this up here. Present again. Share screen.
And when you were running your counter inside zone, even though the guy's motioning to the left, sometimes you were running the quarterback inside zone to the left. So it's like,
so we'll do it a couple of different ways. So here's our base. This is an empty. This is our base outside zone.
I gotta add it to the stream, coach. There you go.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So this is our base outside zone jet sweep package. We'll run it out of a bunch of different formations. Here we're in a heavy set. We'll run to the 2-man side or run to the 3-man side. So this is how we're running it. That's day one. That's literally the first play that goes in out after triple. So pretty simple stuff. Offensive wide zone. We're running that jet sweep action. Like most outside zone, it's going to kind of hit in that B, C gap area. We hit the cutback after it. I'll show one more clip, and then I'll get to the empty stuff. We'll do it out of 2-back. We'll do it out of a million different formations. We'll do it out of tackle over. Here we're in tackle over and double tight end and 2-backs. This is an early play in the game. We'll do it with no motion. So again, we'll dress that up. We'll run it a lot of different ways. And so then when you package that together, then moving on to empty, it's blocked exactly the same way. But now we're going to run into that trip side, but our offensive line is still blocking the same thing. We don't do, to your question earlier, Coach, we don't do a whole lot of the leave the last man away from the zone unblocked and the quarterback pulls it off that guy. We have the ability to, but again, like we really do keep things pretty simple. I'd be interested in hearing some of the defensive coordinators in our league that play us a bunch, what they think. They probably agree. We do not, because we don't have enough time with the kids. Like again, our starting quarterback misses the first 25 minutes of practice every single day except for Thursday. So we just don't have time to do a whole lot of stuff like that. So we try and be excellent and masters of our craft of what we do, and then just add small wrinkles, mostly formational wrinkles, the things that we already do, if that makes sense.
How much
here, again, offensive line blocking exactly the same. Go ahead, Coach.
I mean, you're coaching college football and y'all playing the ODACs. I mean, it's one of the best Division III leagues in America for people that are watching that might not be in Virginia. I mean, you're not really seeing like a different defense every week, like maybe Coach Abel did in high school. Are you, or are you just the teams that are good do what they do? So
yeah, no.
Like,
so
what do they do? Like, is there any like standard adjustment people do to y'all?
Our favorite game to play as an offensive staff, usually on Thursday, is what do you think the look's going to be? And in 2021, we're 8 of the 11 games we were wrong. And so what we'll do is we're a Monday off program. So we have a quick practice on Sunday. Monday off is our game plan day. We come back Tuesday with the kids. So all Monday, what we do is we try and figure out the 2 most likely fronts, and that's what we practice the most until we get to Thursday. And then Thursday, we practice against a little bit of everything. That way, all of our base rules hit. I think it's just philosophically how defensive coordinators are. Some have their option defense. This is what we do. Some say this is what we do. It's sound against everything. This is our base front. So, for instance, Sewanee, the University of the South, we played them game 2 for most years. They play a very small variation of their base defense. So they run their base defense and they have a small option tweak to it. Whereas Randolph-Macon this past year, they were an Okie team 98% of the film that we had. I mean, they had like one clip of even. They were an Okie cover 2 team getting after you. We came out and they were in an even front. They were in a 6-1 with a 2 high safety shell. They ran no cover 2. We were like, man, just completely not how they played us the year before. Hadn't shown it on film at all. So we get a little bit of everything, and that's the same reason, right? What I was saying earlier of your concepts or ours have to be sound because we don't know what we're going to get, and the rules have to be simple enough that a first-year guard or first-year tackle knows how to apply those rules. So the first thing that happens in our play every time, our center is going to call 1 of 4 things: even split, even mic, odd split, odd mic. So odd or even talking about the first level, mic or split talking about the second level, back or box. And all of our rules go into those 4 different categories. It's pretty simple. That's how all of our communication is going to start, and it ties into the quarterback as well and who we're calling 1 and who we're calling 2. So again, our rules and our schemes have to be somewhat simplistic just because we've got to make sure that it's sound to all those.
I mean, because really your offense, it doesn't matter what front they give you because you're really zoning to the right or left. On your sprint out, you're zoning right or left. And then
correct.
Your drop back, I guess odd front, are you fanning it? And then on an even front,
it depends. If we have the back in the backfield, we'll fan it, and the back will have 1 to 2 inside. And if we don't, then they'll block it like a full slide almost. So that's a small communication thing. But yeah, the pass pro stuff is super cool. They really, I mean, we're not pointing out mics and the quarterback's not just pointing out the mic and it declares the protection, all that stuff. We're not doing any of that in the pass game. So no, our schemes are pretty simple. They're really
like Dan Beard, the defensive coordinator from Millersville. He came on and he did a great talk on the 3 safety defense.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen any of that? Because it would seem like that monster man or that middle safety guy, he would be a guy that would try to roll to the motion. Have you seen any of that?
Yeah, so Bridgewater College, again, I'll give a shout out to Mike Giancola, their defensive coordinator there. He's done a really good job defending us the last couple of years. We've had some really good games with those guys the last 3 years, including this past season. They were kind of the first guys to really have that third level, kind of that 2.5 level players, what I call them, that rover, like I talked about in some of that early film, where he's at about 7.5, 8 yards. So he's in front of the safeties, but behind the mic. And so that can be really tough to get a body on that guy. And so that's where your counter punches have to be really, really effective. Because again, for them, they usually put their best player there because he's the hardest guy to get a body on. So if you're going to put your best player and not block him, life can be pretty tough. And so we have a guy in the box whose one job is that. And one of the things that we do that's been really effective that I would encourage anyone to do, not my idea, learned it from Navy. They always had what they called the Bible. And that was every defense they'd ever seen and the answers they liked to it. And so one of the things that we have is we have one of those. It's one of our big off-season projects. Every defense we see, we write down what was effective against it, what hurt us, and then what thought we should have done, essentially. And one of the things that we do is we get into a game, and man, that's not even remotely close to what we practice. We open up the Bible. The guy in the box opens up the Bible. I have one on the sideline too. We open up to the section that is the 3 safety defense, whatever you're seeing that day. And we've got it broken down for what we like. And then it also has broken down by top quarterback plays, top O-back plays, top slot plays, etc. As I've gotten better and a little bit older, and like Coach Abel doesn't have one of those at Davidson because he doesn't need it. He's got it all in his head. As I've gotten better, it's been in my head a little bit more, but that's been really effective. And it's been one of the most effective tools for teaching our assistants. So when we get new guys, we're a very different scheme than a lot of people, obviously. A lot of the guys that we get are coming from more traditional spread schemes or even gap schemes or anything like that. So that project, doing it together, because we do it together, has been a really effective way to teach younger assistants or new assistants what we're doing. So we're all on the same page. We're all thinking the same thing. And then you couple that together with, we only have one guy in the box. We're a small staff, but each person on the field has what they're designated to look for, so that we're not all watching a Mike linebacker on one play and have no idea how the safety's fit or anything like that. So I would really encourage being organized with that, finding roles, writing it down on paper, who's got what on game day. And then again, that Bible project for any offense I'm betting is really, really effective, especially teaching new coaches. And all of us are coaching small college football. Some of the guys coming on here coach big college football, high school. We're all dealing with turnover at every level of football, high school or college, high level Power 5 or Division 3. you're losing coaches every year. And so having a project to put you guys all on the same page schematically is really, really efficient and really effective.
Coach, I know you got to go, but being an offense that people don't see very often, how do you watch film to prepare? Like if you don't have anybody that runs what y'all run,
we never
how
do.
do you get ready?
Yeah, no, it's super tough. So we hired a new offensive line coach this year. He's a high school coach for 15 years. Great guy. His name's Matt Raposa, coached at Rockbridge County High School for 10, 15 years. That was his big question, right? He'd been an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator at the high school level. And we're getting all this film, and we're getting film from Shenandoah playing Macon. Well, Shenandoah is going to chuck it around and all these different things. So you're watching for personnel. You're watching for kind of defensive philosophy and fit system. But again, like most option coaches would tell you that during the week is easier to be on offense than it is on defense on game day. And then the game day is completely flipped because all that adjustment has to come from the coaches in terms of kind of the chess match between the coaches. Whereas on defense, they're doing all the reactionary work during the week. And then on Saturday or Fridays, their calls are their calls. And so we're no different. That's why we try and kind of have a really good blanket response. A lot of what we do is drawing on the board. If they do this, we need to do that. We challenge each other in that way. But we're watching mostly for personnel and then defensive philosophy, but we're not doing the super high level breakdowns that your normal offenses are because it's not effective for us because we're just not seeing it.
Well, Coach, I appreciate you coming on. We'll have you back. Is there anything else you'd like to say to the clinic or Totem Pole Nation, and how can people get in touch with you if they have any more questions?
Yeah, so my email is on our website. If you could type Washington League football, you'll find it pretty quickly. It's jonesr@wlu.edu. My Twitter handle's scrolling there on the bottom of the screen. My cell phone number is on my Twitter as well. I love talking football. It drives my wife crazy. I've got a whiteboard at home. It's next to my spot on the couch. I'm always down to try and help. I'm a product of some phenomenal coaches that I learned from at the high school and college level. One of my favorite, there's a high school coach down in Florida named Ben Bullock who started running this offense. He and I met a lot about what we do. We just hopped on a Zoom last week where I was asking him about something he does. So I love talking football and learning. So don't feel like you can't reach out. I'll share anything that we can because that's what was done for me. I want to thank you for having me on. This clinic has meant a lot to me. I'm so excited to be back on it. The game of football at times feels like it's under attack. So anything that we can do like this to try and strengthen our game and strengthen the coaches that are in it, I'm always down to do.
Yeah, thank you, Coach. Appreciate everybody tuning in.
Yes, sir. Have a good one.